Hey, Groovesters, Ridgely here with the Groove Growth Program of this week. Kind of excited about this one, very, very personal. We're going to have a conversation with a very successful CEO. Happens to be my brother Laird, one of my best friends, if not my best friend. And he's had a really remarkable journey. Recently sold his company. We're going to hear about the whole history of it because, as the great Tony Robbins says, success leaves clues. And I think many people would recommend, if you want to really be successful, read the biographies of really successful people, hang out with really successful people, ask them about what drove their success, what got them to where they are. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So Laird Goldsboro, thank you so much for joining us on Groove Growth. Really appreciate it.
Good morning, Ridgely. It's a beautiful day in Kansas City. Absolutely cloudless, about 75 degrees. Really looking forward to this conversation with you.
Thank you so much, and probably to getting back out there in this nice, beautiful weather as soon as we're finished with it, huh?
I am indeed. I'm going to get out on my bike. It's going to be fun.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about your journey. I mean, it was not the direct entrepreneur route, but all of the Groove community is basically made up of a ton of entrepreneurs, though some of them are converted from corporate. They decided to take matters in their own hands, start their own businesses, and use Groove as their platform and their community. And so we really want to talk to them about, different people have different journeys. So what was yours like? Where did you start and what led you to becoming a CEO?
Well, mine was certainly not the typical entrepreneurial path, at least not the serial entrepreneurial path. I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. I just happened to be really good at what I did, working for someone else for 14 years. And then, as you said earlier, I started hanging around a lot of really successful entrepreneurial people, you among them, and then other business growth groups that I'm sure you've heard of, Vistage and Entrepreneurs Organization, et cetera. And eventually heard the story enough to decide that what I needed to do is own the company. So I bought the company. It was a 30-year-old company at the time. And I ended up buying the company and ran it for 17 years and then exited last year successfully. So I am not a serial entrepreneur. I'm an accidental entrepreneur. And it worked out really well for me. It was fun.
So when you were going through that decision-making process, and because there's a huge lesson here for all Groove members. As you just heard my brother say, I was an accidental entrepreneur. I was working for the company, but then I started hanging out with other successful entrepreneurs and the message started to sink in. Can you talk a little bit about that, about how that process happened and what it led you to take the action that you took?
Well, sure. I mean, at the end of the day, entrepreneurs think differently than employees. I use a line all the time within my company that if you want to find out who's responsible for your success, look in the mirror. And entrepreneurs have that mindset that we just decide what success looks like for us, as opposed to relying on someone else's definition of success. And when you work for someone else, there are clearly very great paths for working for other corporations, for other individuals. But at the end of the day, you are at the mercy of someone else, and your success might be defined by that other person's goals. And when you hang around a bunch of entrepreneurs, what happens is the conversation always turns to, well, what are you doing now? What are you doing next? How are you getting better? And in my case, it just basically translated to, okay, it's time to take the reins of this thing, whatever this thing was, and decide where you're going to go. So I bought the company, probably took a couple of years of running it in the way that I had seen someone else run it, and then hung around with a lot of mentors, a lot of really smart people, and decided that my decision-making skills were probably as good as the predecessors. And the company started to take off, and then it takes on a life of its own if you have success. If you're lucky enough to have success within your organization, the company starts taking on a life of its own, and you just kind of hang on for the ride. Not an easy ride, by the way, and I would emphasize that sometimes working for someone else is a whole lot of an easier approach to financial success. But at the same time, I also wouldn't trade it.
So one of the things that we talk a lot about in the Groove community is the need to associate yourself with places, communities that will upgrade you in some way. We call it up-leveling. Can you up-level yourself by hanging out with other very smart entrepreneurs, smart people, listening to what they say and learning by association? Talk a little bit about how much of an impact it has had on you to belong to those kinds of groups and what you think what the value is for all the Groove community.
Well, I don't think there's any question about you've heard the term or the expression that you become the average of your 5 closest people. So if you take that at face value and you believe that that's true, and I do, if in your business endeavors, at least, you surround yourself by people who are smarter, more motivated, think differently, open to new ideas, then the inevitable result is you too begin to think that way. And so for me, first of all, it took a little while for me to become an entrepreneur by surrounding myself with those people that thought like entrepreneurs and that were entrepreneurs. And then once I owned the company, then you realize that there's a need for continuing education, for mind expansion everywhere you can. And so you seek out, whether it's advisors or mentors or friends, but you seek out these people and you surround yourself by them and you start speaking the same language. You also start noticing that everybody has common problems. You think if you're out on an island by yourself, it gets awfully lonely. And when you get to the top of your particular pyramid, it's also really lonely. So you surround yourself by people who are in the same space, and you realize, now, wait a minute, I'm not the only guy who has these challenges. And these people that you associate with, allow you to work through any particular problems that you have, and they lift you up and they inspire you. And we haven't even gone down the mentor path yet, Ridgely, but it's one that we ought to definitely talk about because I'm a big believer in that as well.
Yeah, so for all the people that are listening, all the Groovesters out there, pay close attention to this. This is really important stuff. Success totally leaves clues. And what Laird is saying, being what he calls the accidental entrepreneur, is that those associations were largely the driver behind initiating the journey. And we know so many of us that are in the Groove community had that experience. We were working, we were dissatisfied, we were upset with our current lot in life. And then we saw Mike Filsame or somebody say, you could have it differently if you joined Groove and became a Groovester. And then you did. And oh, by the way, suddenly, Laird, people are at the top of their pyramid inside the Groove community. It's their business. And literally, unlike you who took time to get to the top, you join Groove and start your own company. You're the lone man at the top in 1 microsecond. And with all that entails, and this community is here for you. So let's just jump to that issue of mentorship, because I certainly am a huge believer. I would consider the leaders in Groove to be mentors of mine. Our CMO, Donna Fox, obviously our CEO, Mike Filsame, and so many other top leaders are mentors to me. And I couldn't agree more. I would be nowhere without my mentors. What has mentorship and having mentors meant to you?
I mean, it's meant the world, Ridgely, and it continues to mean the world. I believe that I'm going to have a mentor until the day I die, because I'm big on continuing education, not just professional or technical, but continuing education as a human, personal development, and mentors can help with that as well. But on the business side alone, just having someone to bounce ideas off who doesn't have a vested interest in your company, but does have a vested interest in you. And if you're lucky enough to identify a mentor whose sole purpose in life is to help others succeed, and you work with that person, then it's just such a blessing. And honestly, from the mentor's side, and I've heard this repeatedly, mentoring is actually kind of a selfish endeavor. because the mentors often get just as much out of mentoring as the mentees get from being mentored. So it is a two-way street. If you can identify someone that you really want to work with, what you'll find out is they're giving you their time is not a sacrifice to them, it's a blessing to them. And so you do have to go through, I've had some mentors that were that we gelled very well, and I've had some mentors that I considered less successful, using the term loosely, but it's important to find one that you can really work with. But it really, you might feel somewhat guilty is too strong, but apprehensive about asking for their help. And I would urge you to put that aside and ask, because at the end of the day, you're giving the mentor an opportunity to help and to give back, and they so appreciate it. For me personally, I'm in a mentoring organization here in Kansas City, and we have a Rolodex, or we call it the black book of mentors. There's about 100 of them. Every single one of them will take our call, and it's because it feels good to help. So while you're seeking help and growth and solutions to a particular problem that day, not reaching out to a mentor is a really bad idea. Find one that you can work with, whether it's in the Groove community or outside, but find somebody that you can work with and start bouncing off ideas. You think that in your space, you're the smartest guy, and that may be the case, but there's always somebody else's perspective on whatever it is you're working with. And I think it would be arrogant to suggest that I knew more than anybody else about how to solve this particular problem. On a technical level, that may be true. On the grander 30,000-foot view, not at all. Seek a mentor. Do it now.
What do you do? How would you counsel somebody that's relatively new to entrepreneurship who might feel a sense of intimidation? I mean, I know early on in my journey, I was able to get a mentor who was a ferocious businessman who was brutal, flat out just brutal. And it was sometimes intimidating. You know who I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
It was flat out intimidating to talk to that guy, because he would say, I'm calling to give him a report. And he'd be like, okay, all right, what do you got? Not hello, how are you? How's your world? He'd answer the phone. Yep. All right, what do you got? And I'd be like, well, so this, that's good. This, I don't like that. No, you got to stop that. This, good. All right, keep going. Bye. Bam. Out. And it was like, I understand that his time was worth a fortune, but it was flat out intimidating sometimes to call him. What would you say, especially to a budding entrepreneur, of how to get past that feeling of, I know I need to talk to my mentor, but man, I'm kind of scared. Like maybe I haven't done what I said I was going to do, or maybe I haven't done enough, or whatever, anxiety comes up with that. What would you say to that person?
Well, I just think being bold, I'm not sure who to attribute the line to, but fortune favors the bold. It's, I'm sure it's a line that you've heard before. And I'm going to suggest just to be bold. Ask. The answer is always no if you don't ask. So just ask. And yes, some people are super busy, and they may feel short on the phone when you reach out to them, or a Zoom or what have you. And that's a real thing. But the answer is always no unless you ask. And so if you're an entrepreneur, you better get in the habit of asking in a hurry. I don't think, I've not even heard this term before, but is there such a thing as a timid entrepreneur, Ridge? And I question that. Entrepreneurs tend to be risk takers. And if asking a question is taking a risk, well, welcome to entrepreneurialism. I mean, that's right. The bottom line. But I also have a couple other ideas on this mentorship. I think that there is a sweet spot in terms of actual demographic. And for me, finding someone who's 10 to 15 years older, just chronologically older, is a good spot. A mentor who's a couple of years older doesn't make as much sense to me, and a mentor who's 40 years older doesn't make that much sense to me. And the reason I say that is their experiences are vastly on, especially when there's a big age gap, their experiences are vastly different than they are. If you have a mentor who's 70 and you're 30, the 70-year-old's experience may not be as relatable to you. And so I'm not suggesting that you push them aside, but it may be in your best interest to find somebody who's 10 or 15 years older who has a bit of a similar relation or experience and that remembers what it was like to be 30 or 35 or 40. But I can't emphasize it enough. Having a mentor or multiple mentors is a great idea. And you might ask yourself, well, wait a minute. I mean, that's all well and good, Laird, but how do I find one? Well, we go back to the surround yourself with like-minded entrepreneurs and tap into their network and reach out to them and ask the question, do you have anybody? Do you know someone that I should go talk to? And I went down this path, as you know, and I talked to a whole bunch of people. And every one of them had something a little different, but eventually you'll land on someone who speaks the same language as you and thinks, maybe doesn't think exactly like you do, but understands the way you think and therefore can help you the most. So, surround yourself with a community of people who seek constant improvement and constant education, and it'll happen. Don't be panicked about, I've got to go find someone today. Just put yourself out there.
Question about that. Putting yourself out there leads me to the thought of going to events, going to things where you can find these people. I know you belong to a number of associations that have ongoing events. We have GrooveCon once a year that a lot of Groovesters are going to go to right before going on our Groovesters Marketers Cruise, which is going to be awesome in January. But talk to me a little bit about, like, I, for example, belong to multiple masterminds. And yes, some of them are on Zoom, and that's cool. But the ones where I really connect with people is where I show up in person, have a chance to meet somebody, maybe grab a drink or a coffee, sit down, etc. What has that meant for you, going and being belly to belly with people and connecting on that level?
I mean, COVID was brutal for all of us, right? We're sitting here doing this via Zoom, Ridgely, and clearly I would rather be doing this in person with you. But and we just had to get through COVID, and here we are. We're coming out of the other side, and we're starting to reconnect with our peers and our friends. I personally, my own space, my own preferred venue is small groups of people where you really can connect with the one-on-one, as opposed to rooms with 1,000 people. And some people thrive on walking into a room with 1,000 people and shaking as many hands as possible, and some don't. And call them introverts versus extroverts or whatever. There's even a term now called the introverted extrovert, which is someone who walks into a room and lights up the room and shakes all the hands and smiles and hugs and then goes home and collapses. And I would put myself in that category. My preferred venue is small groups of people where you can really have a deeper conversation and connect. And one of the organizations that I'm in Kansas City, these mentoring organizations, has this great thing. It's called Tables of Five. And you go to dinner and it's 5 people and it's always a round table. And it's a magic number that allows each and every person at that table to have a moment or many moments. And you just kind of go around and get to know each other more deeply. And that is, you walk away. This happened 2 nights ago for me. One of the guys came up to me when we sat down next to me at the table of 5, and I'd had a conversation with him a year ago, right before he had twin babies. And he said to me, Laird, our conversation changed my life. And I'm telling you, that doesn't happen in a Zoom moment. That's a reconnection moment. So these events that you're talking about in the Groove community, I urge everybody that's watching to just go to those things. Go, break some bread, press some flesh, use whatever expression you want. But connecting in person is more powerful for sure.
Yeah, you know, I had an incredible experience a couple days ago in Austin, Texas. I was at a mastermind, very high-end mastermind, run by a young man, 25 years old, who's a wonder kid. You know, one of these super incredible brains, running an organization now doing $1 million a month. So very much a genius, like a genius guy, recognized as one of the foremost authorities in online marketing today. Like everybody's like, oh my God, the guy's crazy. And at the actual event, as I was saying goodbye, I said, dude, I got to go. I'm out and I got to go. He said, wait a second. I just got to tell you something. I said, what? He said, I just want to let you know that I told my team to take care of you because you're one of my favorite people. And he said, and then he got all bashful. He got all bashful, like he was trying to say something that was difficult for him. Yeah, I'm a lot older than he is, but he's like super successful. And he said to me, he said, and Rizzy, I just got to tell you something. And I hope this doesn't come out wrong or sound kind of weird or whatever. He's getting all flustered in his speech. And he's not like that at all. He says, okay, I'm just going to say it. I go, what? He says, when I grow older, I want to be like you. And I was like, dang, that's a touchdown right there for the old guy. Old guys rule. You know?
There's a win for you.
I'm telling you. I think I've been telling that story for the last couple of days, man, since it happened. And point being that seeking out people that you admire, seeking out people who are a little bit further ahead than you are, is so incredibly valuable. And going to masterminds, hanging out with like-minded people. At Flight Club, which is a mastermind that Donna Fox and Mike Filsaime belong to with me, we do the same thing that you just talked about. We do tables of 6. So I'm interested about that 5 versus 6 number, but it's super clear. No more than 6 at any table. That's the only way. And we do breakout sessions. So having that opportunity to go into a breakout session, and I know you can do that on Zoom, but it's just not the same. And when you're looking to really connect and seek out someone to be a mentor for you, you kind of have to get belly to belly, eyeball to eyeball.
I 100% agree, Rich. And let's flip the coin though for a minute, because you talked earlier about how do you work up the courage to ask, or, you know, how do you seek out this? If you spin that and just flip the coin, you go to these places and start offering yourself as opposed to seeking. It's amazing how those connections start to happen again. So if you go to one of these big events, sure, there are speakers and they're recognized motivational people and recognized experts in online marketing or whatever the field is that, you know, the person standing up on stage is viewed as that's the guy. How about you look in the mirror and you think to yourself, well, you know what? Here's what I have to offer as well. And I guarantee you that there's someone in that crowd that needs or wants what you have as well. And so is it not your obligation might be a little strong, but is it not your opportunity to give some of yourself as well? Because the immediate and inevitable result of your giving is attraction. So if you're one of those persons at those events that is putting yourself out there because you have something to offer, because you believe it, because you are an entrepreneur and you better believe it, I would suggest to you that you are going to attract people because you are offering something, even though you're there for a learning event and looking up at someone who's up on stage. There's something that you have that other people in that room also need. And what you got to do is give that. And it does feel like a bit of a flip, but if you go to one of those events with that intent, with sharing what it is that you have, what's going to happen is you're going to get more out of what other people have as well.
I could not agree more with that, because that's exactly what happened at the event that I was just referring to, where the last person that I had a meeting with was who? The head of joint ventures for this company that's doing $1 million a month. And the head of joint ventures was introduced by the very guy that was the guy that said, I want to be like you. saying, hey, I want you to talk to my head of JVs over here. And what do? Cut a major JV right there, right on the spot. So putting yourself out there, which is exactly what I did, and led to, nice compliment from a very young man who's very successful, and him saying, hey, come with me. I need you to talk to this guy right here. And boom, we cut a deal within about 20 minutes. And so for sure, that attraction thing is huge. I guess it's a little bit, Laird, talk to me a little bit about the, understanding the karma of it all, right, man? If you're trying to be in this community where relationships mean an enormous amount, and oh, by the way, especially in online marketing, one relationship can change your business forever, like in a microsecond. It's almost like there's a little bit of a wrap your brain, if you can, around the idea of seek and seek to give both.
Yeah, and for sure. I mean, and the more you, this is not new or rocket science, the more you give, the more you get. It's a thing. But I just think that if you get to a place where you authentically believe in what it is that you're doing and who you personally are, and that's a struggle for some people, me included, it takes time to really get to your core. But when you start discovering, and it's a process, it's not like you get to your core or you get to authenticity. One day you wake up and there you are. No, that's not, it's a process. But as part of the process, you become more and more you. And when you do, it becomes more and more comfortable to be you and to put yourself out there like that. And I suggest that, sometimes going to these big events can be awkward. Just go and be yourself. And I guarantee you somebody wants to hear your message. There's an important, everybody is seeking. You may look at that guy up on the stage and think that person has it all figured out. Let me tell you something. That is simply not the case. They might have figured out a lot of stuff. They might have figured out more stuff than you, but I guarantee you they haven't figured it all out. And that's where you come in. Here's a new perspective. Here's something that I've learned. Here's something that I believe. Here's something that I read. Here's a person that I've met. There's something there that you have for others in the room. And I'm just suggesting that the sooner you put that out there, the sooner you're going to start to attract those people who are going to help you be more successful, help you be more wise, help you in business, help you have more experiences that are going to change your life. You can't be timid and meek. And as an entrepreneur, you definitely can't. I'm going to urge, whether it's through the Groove community or whatever your process is, just put yourself out there because it's going to come back to you originally.
One last topic before we wrap this up, and that is the concept of personal development, personal growth, reading the books, listening to the tapes, or the audios or the downloads or the whatever. What would you say to the Groove community is the importance? What's it meant to you, and what is the importance of continuing that lifelong learning?
Well, there's another expression that once you're done moving, you're done. And that applies to your brain as well. If you're not exploring new ideas and digesting new information and seeking new points of view, I think your brain starts a process of attrition and stenosis. And I personally, I can't imagine not studying something new and just picking up some new bit of information. And it doesn't matter what your venue is. Are you a reader? Great. Are you a better audio person? Are you a better listener? Great. And entrepreneurs don't have time for anything, right? Except there's a truism in the statement that if you need something done, give it to a busy person, right? So a busy person figures out, and entrepreneurs are busy. Busy people figure out where to slide in that continuing education. Is it on your drive to your next meeting? Is it on a plane ride? Is it on your inspirational walk in the morning? Whatever the venue, do you read better in the morning than you do in the evening? Just, I urge everybody to continue their path of learning. And you say, well, how do I find out what it is? What do I need to read today? Well, what are you interested in? Do you need to know about management? Do you need to know about technical issues, finances? Do you need inspiration? Do you need motivation? There are so many speakers available, and I'm sure in the Groove community, you've got a bunch of them, Ridgely, that people can turn to. But I go back to the mirror concept. Who's responsible for your development and your success? The guy in the mirror, or the woman in the mirror. And so, if you take that approach, then you're going to find whatever bits of information that you want to digest. And I can't imagine just not feasting on new information every day. To me, it's a driver, and I think it's helped me grow personally. And we talked about tapes in the car or listening to podcasts or what have you. It goes back to surrounding yourself with like-minded people, by the way, because if you do, those people are going to be having the conversation that you and I are having right this minute. And when you hear that conversation over and over again, what happens is you just become part of the conversation.
Yeah, truer words never said. I want to say, and that's the very reason why we have Groove Growth. All you Groovesters and Groove Stars, as we like to say, tap in on an ongoing basis to this resource that you have. People who are super successful, leaders and visionaries. Laird Goldsboro, successful CEO and still a mentor and a mentee. I want to say thank you very much on behalf of the Groove community for your time. We really appreciate it. And I love you, brother, of course. So see you very soon. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks so much. Been really great. Love you too, man.